Sponsored by Audible. Hello my beautiful watchers, and welcome to Lost in Adaptation, the YouTube show about comparing films to the books they're based on. Just a quick heads up, self-harm will be discussed later in this video, but you will be given the opportunity to skip past it if you would like. Missing that one part won't detract too much from the overall experience. Richelle Mead is an American author and either one of the fastest, hardest workers I've featured on my show in a while, or has the ability to bend time itself because, in her mere 45 years on this planet, she's managed to rack up 3 university degrees, including 2 masters, and written an ungodly amount of YA novels spread out over dozens of series. She started her career as an 8th grade teacher until she published her first novel, Succubus Blues, in 2007, the success of which allowed her to quit her job and write full-time. Vampire Academy is one of her most popular series, consisting of 6 novels chronicling the trials and tribulations of students from a secret school for vampires and their mostly human friends. I have only partaken of book 1 of 6, so it's possible they evolve radically in the sequels, but just going from my experience so far, I would describe it as what you might get if you were to mash together the teen vampire part of Twilight, the school drama elements of Harry Potter, and oddly enough the magic system from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Quick synopsis: in this world there are apparently 3 types of vampire. There are the Morai, who are mostly the good guys. They are sort of mortal vampires, if you will. They're born when 2 Morai hook up, they only drink the blood of volunteer humans, and have magic powers based on the elements. Then there are the baddies, the Strigoi, who are more like traditional vampires. They're super strong and fast, they murder their victims, and they're deathly allergic to sunlight. They're either created by them turning a human or a Morai against their will, or if a Morai intentionally kills a human while drinking their blood. And finally, there's the Dampier, which to my great disappointment are not vampires who got wet. They are the result of a crossbreeding between a Morai and a human, and are, for all effective purposes, just human. They often choose to train to become guardians, lifelong bodyguards of certain Morai who are becoming an endangered species because the Strigoi like feeding off them in particular. The Hogwarts stand-in is Vladimir Academy, a vampire high school that, in addition to the regular curriculum, teaches magic to the Morai and martial arts to the Dampier. The POV character is a 17-year-old Dampier named Rose who is training to be the guardian of her childhood friend Lissa, who is the last living member of a royal family of Morai. Due to mysterious events, Rose has a one-way psychic link to Lissa that allows her to feel her emotions and occasionally see out of her eyes. Like the early boy wizard books, the leads split their time and energy pretty equally between actually important world-endangering threats and schoolyard drama with mean bullies. While I did just reference Twilight, and indeed no YA novels that focused on teen vampire drama romance published in the late 2000s can deny that they probably owe their existence to the titanic mark that series made on the literary world, for better or worse, I would say that this one forged its own path more than the average, or at least subverted some of the expectations you might have formed about this emerging genre. For starters, the human vampire leads are friends instead of romantic partners, and it was very interesting to see the vampire portrayed as the physically and emotionally fragile one of the pair, relying on her human for support and protection. Going in, I took great pains to keep in mind that I shouldn't judge this book too harshly because, as a 35-year-old man, I wasn't its target audience, which made it doubly surprising when I found myself somewhat drawn into the social drama of teenage vampires.
Ooh, girl better not be making up rumours about her letting guys bite her. My girl ain't no blood hole. Cruising for bruising is what she is.
I was also reasonably impressed by the way this book handled themes of depression, self-harm, drug addiction, and mental health medication, several of which were tied into supernatural occurrences but still treated with extreme seriousness. In June 2010, Prigger Entertainment bought the adaptation rights to all of the Vampire Academy books, planning a glorious multi-film series. Daniel Waters, the writer behind Heathers, was tapped to write the screenplay, and shortly later it was announced that the director would be none other than his brother Mark, who not long before had delivered the smash hits Freaky Friday and Mean Girls. The series made its big debut in 2014, and the first movie bombed so hard they cancelled the rest. Like this was a real financial stinker. Allegedly, it only made about half its production budget back. And yeah, it's not a great film. Zoe Deutsch was a decent actor, but an incredibly forgettable lead, and the rest were either mediocre, terrible, or just not in the film enough to make much of a difference. Worst amongst them was Danila Kozlowski, who played the main love interest. Kudos on them for casting a Russian actor to play a Russian character for once, but they probably should have added able to act as a requirement as well. In addition to his failure to deliver a single line convincingly, You know how it's sometimes super obvious when a character that's supposed to be a hotshot martial artist is being played by someone who doesn't know any actual martial arts, and the editing has to bend over backwards to compensate? That's this guy in a nutshell. The film also has a serious issue with clumsy exposition, like my gods.
You know, it's been less than a year since we ran away from the academy. 2 years since the crash.
Vasilisa Dragomir is from one of the 12 royal families.
She's the last of the Dragomir line.
You know you're talking to Christian Azera, right? Parents transform themselves into Strigoi.
The necklace gift I gave to Rose is bathed in a very expensive love charm.
Keep in mind all of this is in addition to Rose's narration that painstakingly explains everything to the audience on and off throughout the movie, including some on-screen titles to help break down all the different types of vampires and their magic system. Also, there's this weird moment where it almost seems like she's breaking the fourth wall and is aware that she's in a movie, but I'm not sure because it never comes up again.
And now for the obligatory cafeteria scene. Sort of.
So yeah, just based on its merits as a film, I'm not too surprised it bombed, though with adaptations you can usually expect a certain amount of success just from the pre-existing fan base. Let's see why that didn't happen here. So, popular book, unpopular film, you would be forgiven for assuming it must have gone pretty off the rails, but surprisingly, no, it actually kinda doesn't. No, really, from start to finish, it actually follows the book's plot pretty damn loyally. Rose and Lissa begin their tale attempting to live relatively normal lives while in hiding, with Rose periodically allowing her Morai BFF to sustain herself on her blood. They realize they're being watched and attempt to make a break for it, but are immediately captured by a young Russian man in his 20s named Dmitri, who takes them back to Vladimir Academy. Rose takes most of the blame for them scarpering, but escapes expulsion when Lissa's terminally ill Uncle Victor goes to bat for them, and Dmitri vouches for her potential as a fighter. She even avoids being split up from her friend because Lissa uses compulsion on the headmistress, a not unheard of but very rare vampire glamour power. As the film goes on, it's revealed in flashbacks that they ran away after a teacher called Mrs. Karp witnessed Lissa using an even rarer vampire power to heal a dying raven and freaked out, using her own compulsion powers to panic Rose into cheesing it for Lissa's sake. Also, via sporadic flashbacks, we learn the reason that Rose and Lissa share a magical bond is Rose basically died in a car crash but was brought back to life by Lissa's magic. The girls slip back into their previously abandoned school lives, though much to her chagrin, Rose discovers that she's fallen behind the curve combat training-wise and has to take extra classes with Dmitri. She quickly develops a crush on the older boy and picks up vibes that it might be reciprocated. Life is made difficult for her and Lissa by a school bully by the name of Mia, who seems determined to be as horrible to them as possible. She and Rose enter into a war of rumors and slander in an attempt to fatally ruin the social standing of the other. Meanwhile, some awful person keeps leaving dead animals for Lissa to find, driving her into deeper and deeper states of emotional distress. While she doesn't seem inclined to defend herself, Mia's treatment of Rose eventually pushes Lissa into taking matters into her own hands and start using her compulsion powers en masse to hypnotize the entire school into loving her. This works regarding defeating Mia, but doesn't stop the animal bodies from piling up. Rose is injured after tripping over quite badly, but Lissa successfully heals her in time for the big school dance. They go out dress shopping and Uncle Victor gives her an extremely expensive necklace. At the dance, Mia is just a little bit too bitchy to them, so Rose starts a fight. While she's being told off for this, she has a magic bond vision of Lissa getting kidnapped. She rushes to inform Dmitri, but it turns out her necklace has a horny spell on it that compels them to get it on instead of protecting their charge. Fortunately, Dmitri realizes what's happening and throws it out of the window before he engages an activity that would necessitate he be added to a government list. Through her link, Rose discovers that Lissa was kidnapped by her own Uncle Victor, who has been planting dead animals in her room to test to see if she did indeed have magic healing powers, because he wants her to be his live-in doctor slave and constantly heal his chronic illness. Rose leads a group of guardians to the rescue and they storm his compound, defeating Victor's henchmen and some nasty wolf monsters. All seems well after that, aside from, at least from Rose's point of view, Dmitri being absolutely unwilling to continue a relationship with his underage student. However, when Rose goes to talk to their disgraced prisoner, in a plot twist it's revealed that he talked his own sweet daughter into turning herself into a strigoi to spring him, a heinous act that doesn't even pay off as she's killed by Dmitri and he's immediately recaptured. Dmitri admits he does have feelings for Rose, but he's unwilling to date a 17-year-old or possibly compromise their mission of protecting Lissa, which soothes Rose's hurt feelings somewhat, and the story ends on her meeting the Raven that Lissa healed. Interspersed of all this is the fairly book-accurate romantic subplot between Lissa and Christian, a Morai student shunned by the rest of the school because his parents apparently willingly went Strigoi and had to be hunted down by guardians. After he and Lissa start bonding over their mutual social stigma, he uses his firebending to get an arsehole to stop giving them grief. However, Rose doesn't like him, so she lies to him about Lissa's feelings towards him and is forced to eat humble pie later when she realizes the error of her manipulative ways. He stows away so that he can join the quest to save Lissa at the end and is mortally wounded in the process, so Rose allows Lissa to feed on her in front of everyone so she can regain enough strength to heal him. This is significant because they also carried over the book theme of drinking blood being considered somewhat a sexual act and being fed upon being akin to drug use, as vampire saliva seeps addictive endorphins into their victim. As a result, it carries a huge stigma, and people who allowed themselves to be fed on were commonly referred to as blood whores. Carp and her mysterious story, told exclusively through flashbacks, is also pretty accurate, including her eventual choice to turn Strigoi to escape the facility the Morai government had confined her to. Her character is all set up and no payoff in this, which was fine in the books, but a bit of a problem for the Forever Alone film. Can I just say that after reading so much Stephenie Meyer recently, it was nice to read a vampire-themed story in which the adult thrown into a romantic situation with a minor was like, no, sorry, if we were older it wouldn't be an issue, but I'm an adult and you're a minor. I'm glad they kept it in the film is all I'm saying. And now, a quick word about this video's sponsor. In the event that my description of this book has piqued your interest in it, but heavy upon your heart weighs the worry that your busy schedule will not accommodate sufficient reading time, for you have too much driving, cooking, cleaning, and healthy exercise ahead of you, fear not, for this title is available in Audible's unmatched online depository of titles, and it could be yours for the low price of free. If you go to audible.com/noble or text noble to 500 and sign up for Audible's 30-day commitment-free trial, bestowed upon you will be a credit that can be exchanged for any audiobook they have, regardless of its price. I guarantee you there are no catches here. You get the audiobook credit when you sign up for the trial, and you get to keep it forever even if you decide not to continue with the subscription. Saying no to this is literally saying no to a free audiobook. If you do decide to continue, you'll get a new credit each month and access to an ever-increasing amount of additional free content, like audiobooks that are simply included in membership, and the Plus catalog, which provides podcasts, guided meditation, and fitness programs. So again, you can use my link, audible.com/noble or text noble to 500 to start enjoying your first title completely free. So if the plot wasn't an issue, was it the tone? Well, not exclusively, but yes, tone is a real problem here. I do see the logic of hiring Mark Waters, I really do. It's a teen drama about high school bullies, and he directed one of the most successful movies about that theme of all time, but it was still a mistake. The problem is, Mean Girls is a satirical comedy of the parts of high school life that Vampire Academy plays almost entirely straight. The big appeal of the books lies in reminding you of the hardships of feeling like an inadequate piece of shit in school, while also mixing in vampire stuff, and you kinda lose that when you play it so much for laughs. Possibly aware that their final product was in danger of boring people, the film slipped in multiple additional action sequences to wake up their audience, including extending Rose's fight with the less badass than Dimitri Guardians at the start, immediately followed by a Strigoi attack right outside the school, then a violent dream sequence about halfway through. Rose also gets to play a slightly more important role in Natalie's death. Originally, she just got her ass utterly handed to her before Dimitri bust in and saved her single-handedly. For some reason, the filmmakers decided to make Lissa opposed to the word vampire. While it's technically never said out loud in dialogue in the book, only in narration, there's no indication the word is taboo in any way. It's always so random when screenwriters do this, like that abomination of an Artemis Fowl adaptation where they randomly decided that Mr. Butler would hate being called a butler with no explanation as to why. The film portrayed the headmistress of Vladimir Academy as a lot more sus, as the kids would say. implying heavily she might be in cahoots with whoever was conspiring against Lissa and Rose, culminating in her attempting to forcefully sedate her after she started a fight at the school dance. Which, if you think about it, kind of makes it fucked up that she wasn't a villain. Like, what the hell? She was going to medically incapacitate one of her teenage school students as a punishment for punching someone? Also, while I'm being incredulous anyway, why the fuck were the novice guardians using a multi-axis trainer? Were they planning to go to space at some point? One major failing of the film was its portrayal of the side effects that Lissa suffered from using her powers. In the book, it took the form of mental health issues. She would become more and more clinically depressed and start having violent mood swings. Now, I understand why that would be harder to display in film form. You have less time to establish what she's usually like, and depression is a difficult thing to get right visually as so much of it is internalized, but their substitution was, itchiness. When she overused her powers, she got all itchy. That was what they thought would be the next best thing to fill in for crushing emotional distress. Now we must discuss the other side effect of her magic, the self-harm. Here's the time code to skip past this section if you would prefer to. In the book, Lissa relieved the pent-up feelings of both using her powers and the regular crushing stress that comes with being a teenager by using a razor blade to cut her arms. Mead displayed a pretty high insight into the thought process that led this poor girl to doing this, and I think she handled how it was portrayed in the book pretty well. It's not glorified in any way, shape or form, and Rose behaved pretty realistically regarding how she dealt with it, initially trying to cover for her friend, but eventually doing the responsible thing and reporting her to their guardians so Lissa could get treatment for her mental health issues. On a related note, as I mentioned earlier, I was also impressed by Mead writing in Lissa being treated with antidepressants instead of hand-waving an easy fix for her struggles. As someone who takes medication for both ADHD and depression, I've noticed very few works of fiction portraying this responsibly. In the film, they seemed neither willing to commit to this or cut it out completely, and compromised on the abrasion spontaneously appearing on her arm by literal magic just this one time, and then they're immediately healed. Okay, here's a stupid one to lighten the mood. In the book, Rose was walking along a row of wooden benches and a plank snapped with the help of a little vampire magic, causing her to fall and twist her ankle. The filmmakers decided to go with something that was somehow both more underwhelming and significantly more dramatic, as her assailant earthbends a very small hole in the street below her, and when she steps into it, her shin bone explodes out of her leg. What makes it even funnier is they clearly lost their nerve regarding something this graphic, so it's only on screen for a split second, and Rose lets out the kind of yelp you'd expect from stubbing one's toe, so it's actually super easy to miss it, and it kinda looks like she just tripped over and ended up in hospital. The film went in a slightly different direction regarding Strigoi Natalie. In the book, it's made clear the poor girl wasn't evil, she was just so utterly desperate for her father's love, she would do literally anything he told her to do. On screen, she monologues about how she was secretly evil all along, and in fact was the one to come up with some of the more sadistic methods of tempting Lissa into using her powers. It makes it more of a twist villain reveal than a tragedy, which I guess is also valid, but I don't think it was what Mead was going for. They added in a few pot shots at Twilight here and there, which was a bold move considering this film almost certainly wouldn't have existed without it. Instead of showing no aptitude to any of the elements because it would turn out she had spirit power, in the film Lissa has mastery over all four. I was willing to forego making accusations of plagiarism before, but now I kind of feel like my hands are tied. In a laughable attempt at sequel baiting, the film's final shot pans out to a cave full of Strigoi that is apparently within visual range of the school. As I've not read the sequels, I can't say for sure this isn't book accurate, but it does seem rather silly. Lastly, I don't want to talk about the cat, so final thoughts. So, an interesting case of being loyal to the plot on paper, but utterly failing to capture the spirit of the source material. I maintain the single biggest reason this film flopped is it just wasn't a very good film, but the mistakes made in the adaptation process, the understandable and the just plain silly, certainly didn't do it any favors and probably cost them the fanbase they might have otherwise had. Fans of the book can take heart though. While this film's sequels may have been denied their shot at an unlife, a reboot TV series is, at the time of this video's publication, less than a month away from premiering on Peacock, so Rose and Lissa are getting at least one more chance at being brought to the screen convincingly. Thank you for joining me, my beautiful watchers. Don't forget the YouTube algorithm is a horrific Lovecraftian monster that likes to condemn channels that fail to get enough likes, comments and shares to the dark pits of irrelevance, and, well, I'd love to avoid that if possible. See you next time.
I wake up, my shoulders bare. They call me blood whore, I guess that's fair. I pull my shirt up, walk out the door. Dead birds all over the floor. Then I see you compel the entire campus, strutting your stuff like queen of all the vampires. I'll just be your mild-mannered friend till someone tries to kill us again. I'll just be your mild-mannered friend till someone tries to kill us again.
Much love and appreciation to my patrons of honor, Shelby Holtz, Attell Spurdloff, and Trace Carter. Shout out to Ilnej for the credits music, check out his channel for more parody and original songs, and a huge thank you to this video's editor, Sophia Ricciardi. Links to her work in the video description. You know it's martial arts because I do this. I need a cap for this line, but Wisp is sleeping so peacefully. He's not going to forgive me. This could go badly. All right, just one more take? Okay.